This was such a fascinating concept. It's such a thought-provoking book, and I do think that it was very well done. I was so engaged in the story that I didn't even feel the time passing by. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby, and today we're going to be starting on a reading vlog. And this reading vlog is going to be extra special because I had this really fun idea where I wanted to do a reading vlog themed around certain things that I love in books. And so this vlog specifically is going to be a vlog where I read books that talk about dreams, memories, or alternate realities. Because those three things are some of my favorite things to read about in books. A lot of my favorite books of all time include this concept of like an alternate reality where we follow a character where it's like, what if they made this one different decision and everything in their life was different because of it? We as the reader, we kind of get to see both of those decisions play out, and we get to see how their lives would be different based off one thing. So I love reading about alternate realities, but then I also do love reading books about dreams and memories. So in today's video, I'm going to be reading 4 different new release books that kind of deal with these subjects. The first one that I'm going to be reading is called The Memory Collectors, and this one obviously deals with memories. This one says 4 strangers time travel to the past and find themselves stuck on the day all their lives were changed. So that's another thing that I love in books is time travel. I have a lot of fun with time travel, and so I'm really looking forward to this one. I was able to get this book checked out from my library, by the way, so I can't wait to read it. Another book that I'm going to be reading for this video is The Other Side of Now, and this one is like an alternate reality book where we're following this woman who is an actress, and a long time ago, I think it's like 10 plus years ago, she had this best friend who passed away suddenly, and so now she's feeling a little bit burnt out on her job, and she's going to be taking this trip to Ireland because her and her best friend always wanted to take this trip to Ireland together. And then when she lands in Ireland, things are not what they seem. It almost feels like she dropped into some kind of alternate reality because her best friend is still alive. And it almost appears as if she's been living in Ireland herself and she's not an actress in this universe, and things just seem totally different. And so this one involves an alternate reality in that way. I've been hearing such great things about this book, so I'm so excited to get into it. Another book I'll be reading for this video is The Dream Hotel, which this one clearly deals with dreams. This is one that I've heard a lot of people say is kind of like a Black Mirror episode, because this one takes place in a near future when even your dreams are under surveillance by the government. And so, you know, like Black Mirror, it says that this book explores the seductive nature of technology and kind of shows like the darker side of things. I've been hearing really great things about this book as well, so I can't wait to get into it. Then I'm also going to be reading this book called The Merge, and this is one that I actually got an ARC for on my Kindle because this book doesn't come out until November. But this is one of my most anticipated books of this year because the concept for this book is so fascinating, because we're following these characters who are living in this world where it's becoming really popular to do this thing where 2 minds merge together into one body. And in this story, we're following this main character who her mother just got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she's going to be doing a trial test where she's going to be merging her mind with her mom in an effort to try and save her mother and cure her. This one just sounds so up my alley with like everything that I love in sci-fi. I really love light sci-fi like this. The idea of merging 2 minds into one body, like that sounds like my dream premise. It just sounds so cool. And it also sounds like it's going to be very hard hitting because of the subject matter in this book, so I cannot wait. This is like a 5-star prediction for me. Like, I'm so excited to read The Merge. I also did want to mention that during this video, I also tried to read A Language of Limbs, and I actually ended up DNFing this one about halfway through. This is another one of the books that deals with like alternate realities because we follow this character who is a young teenager in Australia in the 1970s. And it's actually really sad because in one of the timelines, this teenage girl is caught kissing another girl on her couch, and she's basically like thrown out of her house, and she has to try to like figure out life for herself, and she meets some really amazing people along the way. But it is really sad and really hard to see her getting thrown out of her home, and her parents are just really not accepting of her sexuality. And then we do follow this same character in another alternate reality where she never kissed the girl on the couch, and like her parents never found out that she's queer, and we kind of follow her on this journey as she like goes to university and like makes a lot of friends, and like her life looks very different. And so in this story, you're literally flashing back between the chapters. They're literally called Limb 1 and Limb 2 as you're going back and forth between the 2 universes, and this book is really beautifully written. It was just very heavy and really sad. I mean, I can see myself going back and finishing this book eventually, but it was just a little bit too sad for me at the moment. And I do think this is one that I will come back to, but I just wanted to let you know this is another book that I was going to try to read for this video. But yeah, those are the 4 books that I'm going to be reading for today's video. But before we do jump into the video, I just wanted to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, which is Squarespace. Because Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website. You can start a completely personalized website with the new guided design design system. You can choose from professionally curated layout and styling options. I know nothing when it comes to website design. Like, that is not a skill that I have, but Squarespace makes it so easy to get started, and actually like browsing through their different layouts and all the different custom things you can choose from, it really inspired something in me to want to create and to be even better. You can sell your products and services with an online store, whether you sell physical goods, digital content, or services. Squarespace has all the tools you need to start selling online. I love that you can create your own online aesthetic with dozens of modern options, then connect social media accounts in a few clicks to extend your brand's footprint. It really couldn't have been any easier to start making this website. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/gabbyreads to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into the reading vlog. Hello, hi. I have started reading The Memory Collectors, and I'm now on chapter 15. I'm about 132 pages in, and I thought I would update you because so far this book has been going pretty well. And what I didn't realize about this book was that it was going to be a bit of a speculative mystery. So like the story's not really as much sci-fi as I was expecting it to be, and it does feel like it's a little bit more of a mystery, but I really do like the writing for the most part in this book. I mean, what I like is that we are following 4 different characters, but it's really cool to see how all of their stories are connected in a really unique and interesting way. It does remind me a lot of like Nikki Erlich's writing. Like this does remind me a bit of like The Measure and like The Poppy Fields. Like it has like a similar feel to it, where like if you had told me that Nikki Erlich was the author of this book, I would be like, yeah, like this fits into like her kind of stories, which is exciting because I really love The Measure, and like this is exactly the kind of light sci-fi that I really enjoy, because we have these people that are doing this thing called an Aeon expedition, and it's basically described as this groundbreaking time travel invention where like basically people get to go into the past for an hour and they only get 60 minutes, and I think it said it was like random, like they don't get to choose the moment in their past that they go to, but it just sends them back. They only have 60 minutes to be in the past and then they come back to reality. And this is like a brand new invention that is like very popular among a lot of rich people, but now they're finally doing trials where like the average people can sign up for this. And so we are following 4 different characters who all have, you know, very different experiences. One of the main characters we're following is this woman named Elizabeth, who has recently lost her son, and she is also the wife of the founder of this. Like Mark is the guy who is like the CEO creator of Aeon Expeditions. But then we also follow like a range of different characters. Like there's one character who spent a long time in prison, there's another character who's paralyzed, and then there's another guy who's like trying to find his first love. And can I just say that out of these 4 perspectives so far, I think Andy, he's the one that's like trying to find his first love. I think he is the most obnoxious out of all 4 of these, because he was literally with this girl for only 5 days before she ghosted him. And he's literally going back in time to like try to find this girl and try to have more clarity on why she would ghost him after 5 amazing days together. And I'm like, dude, are you for real? Like, get a grip. It was only 5 days. I'm just so confused on why he thinks that this was like the most epic love of his whole life if it was only like a 5-day long thing. And like, if she ghosted you, she probably had a good reason, right? Like, I don't understand. I don't know, his part just feels a little bit odd to me. I'm like, 5 days? Like even 5 weeks, I would be like, what? But 5 days, that's bizarre to me. So far the story's going well. I do think that everything feels a little bit like one-dimensional or like surface level for me right now. Like I don't feel really attached to any of these characters yet, but I am liking that as we are progressing through the book, I like that we're learning more about these characters and their past and how they might be connected to each other. I also like the kind of like mystery element that's getting more introduced into the book now, and I'm really curious to see where that ends up going. So I have about just a little bit less than 200 pages left at this point. It's already 7:30 at night right now, but I don't really have anything going on tonight. Like I might just lay here in my room and finish reading this tonight. I mean, you know, the book is entertaining when I can be reading it with my eyeballs, and I don't have any issues like staying focused on it, because I've become so dependent on audiobooks that sometimes it's like really hard for me to focus on a book when I'm only reading it physically. But this one is definitely holding my attention, and I'm just really curious to see where this one ends up going. I mean, gosh, depending on how the second half of this book goes, like I could see myself giving this anywhere from like 2 stars to 3 stars to 4 stars. It just really depends. Like I don't think it's gonna be a 5-star for me at this point, but you know, who knows? Maybe I will get more emotionally attached to these people as the story goes on. I don't know. But so far it has really good vibes. I do love the discussion about like memories and how like our memories make us who we are, and also like the discussion about like if you could go back in time into your life for 1 hour, like if you only had 1 hour that you could go back in time to, like what would you do if you had a choice? I think that's a very thought-provoking and interesting thing to think about. So yeah, I'm going to light a few candles in my room here and just plan to finish this book tonight. Let's do it. So many hours have passed and I just finished reading The Memory Collectors. I feel a little bit unsatisfied with the second half of this book. I think my biggest issue with this book was the character Andy. He kind of drove me crazy. And like, I'm sorry, I just find it hard to believe that this man would go through all of this effort and he's so convinced that he's in love with this girl and that she's like the best thing that's ever happened to him and he'd be willing to sacrifice everything in his life for her, and he's only known her for 5 days. And I feel like that ended up playing a really big part in the story. Like, this author clearly wanted me to care about this relationship between Andy and this girl Kate that he's known for like such a brief period of time. And he keeps saying, you know, that Kate was like his first love, and it's all just like so dramatic. But I also didn't love the second half of this book because there was a reveal later on in the book that I was like, well, that was obvious. Like, I definitely saw that coming, and that's kind of what I thought was going on. And then also, like, there were some things that happened that I was like, well, that's fucking convenient. It just felt a little bit like unrealistic. Like, it's definitely the kind of ending where you have to like suspend your disbelief a little bit because I'm like, there's no way. I feel like this book kind of struggles genre-wise because yes, this is technically a sci-fi because of the time travel elements, but then it also reads more like a mystery, kind of like a mystery thriller book if I'm being honest. And then at times it also kind of reads like a romance because you're supposed to like really strongly care about this romance between Andy and this girl. And then there's also like a romance that's kind of being explored with Elizabeth and her husband, this guy Mark that like owns, you know, the time travel company. Like, there's a few different romances being explored in this story as well. So like, genre wise, I feel like this book is kind of all over the place, but I feel like because it's all over the place, I feel like it's trying to do too much, and because of that it feels like it's like half-assing everything, you know, because I think the time travel in this book is cool, but like it didn't really go anywhere that interesting for me. I feel like it could have been explained in a different way and like just could have gone in a different direction. But then I also think the mystery for this book, like, it started off really interesting and really compelling, but then it went somewhere where I definitely expected the story to go. So like, the mystery did not end up being that satisfying either. And then like, the characters, for some reason all of the characters felt very one-dimensional to me. Like, there was not a single character in this book that stood out among the rest as like, oh my god, they're different. And I don't know if it's because most of this book is told in first person, which is really annoying to me when you're reading from so many different perspectives, because they all just start to read the same when they're like, I did this, I did that, I do this. And I'm like, can you just say their names? Like, I much prefer third person narration when we have so many different perspectives, I've realized. I know it just sounds like I'm being so picky and like picking the story apart, but like, these were all the reasons why this one didn't really work for me as much as I wanted it to. You know, I really thought that this was feeling like a solid 4-star for like the majority of this book, just because it's very readable, which I do appreciate. Like, this one's very easy to read with your eyeballs. Like, I almost flew through this entire thing just tonight. So it's very quick, very easy to get through. It has the short chapters, so it makes it feel like the pacing is going very fast, which I did really like about this. I also did love the sci-fi bits in this book. Like, I love the idea of the time travel. I love the idea of how it works. I feel like I would actually like a sequel that takes place in this universe that just follows like different characters, because I think the main reason why this one was just like meh for me is because I didn't love any of these characters, and especially Andy. I feel like they could have just taken out Andy entirely, especially in the second half. Oh my god, like, his perspective, I was like, dude, I don't care. I kept skimming his parts. I was like, I don't give a crap about this man. Ugh, I don't know what I want to rate this book. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars because I feel like this is one that I'm not gonna feel too passionately about either way. Like, I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. It was very readable, and I, for the most part, had a really fun time reading this today, but I just wanted so much more from this, you know? Like, I feel like this is the kind of 3-star read for me that, like, this book is good, but would I recommend it? I don't know. I think I would recommend Nikki Erlich's, you know, sci-fi books over this one, because this one does have a similar feel to it, but I just didn't care as much about anything that I was reading. At least not as much as I do when I read Nikki Erlich. Like, I think Nikki Erlich's sci-fi books are so good. So yeah, this was kind of a bummer. I think I'm gonna settle on around a 3-star. I know I sounded like I mostly complained about things in this book, but I did enjoy my time reading this today. I guess I'm just disappointed because with a synopsis like this, I see so much potential for like where this story could have gone. That's a bummer. But anyway, at least, you know, tonight my mom ended up making this pumpkin cobbler that was so good. It was delicious, and it turns out I love any kind of cobbler. I just love cobbler. I love pumpkin. You couldn't go wrong. Hello, I wanted to update you because I have started reading The Other Side of Now, and I'm about 80 pages into this one. This is a book that I was really excited to read because I think the premise for this sounds so unique, because we're following this woman who's an actress, and her name is Meg Bryan as an actress, which is really fun, you know, because it's similar to Meg Ryan. And she had this best friend named Amy that she grew up with and that she was really, really close with, but Amy actually died in a car accident about 10 years ago now. And now we're following Meg on her 30th birthday as she's kind of like thinking about her life and reflecting on her choices. And you know, I think it's really cool that she's having her 30th birthday in this book because I also turned 30 this year in January. So I do relate to a lot of the feelings that she's having about, you know, like turning 30 and how that's like such a big milestone for your life. And she's kind of feeling a little bit burnt out, you know, with like her job and her career with acting. She's just feeling like she's hitting a breaking point. So she decides to book this trip to Ireland. And this trip to Ireland is a trip that her and her friend Amy always wanted to do together. And so it does make her feel a little bit sad to be going on this trip without her, but she really wants a break from everything else. And it's so cool because as she's landing in Ireland, she starts to notice all these like weird things about Ireland where like people are calling her by her real name, not her like stage name. And then there's all these weird things happening to the point where she's like, did I just step into like an alternate reality? Like, what is going on? And it seems like she even has a home there. Like, some people are saying that they know her that she doesn't know. And she's starting to put together the pieces that she has basically stepped into an alternate reality where her best friend Amy might still be alive in this reality. And it's kind of looking at her life like, what if she never really got serious about acting, and what if she did end up going on this trip to Ireland with her friend and they ended up moving to Ireland together. And so I am loving the setup of this so far because I do like following from the perspective of an actor. Like, I like to hear about the behind the scenes of Hollywood and like what it's like to work in that world, but I also really do like the writing in this so far. It does feel very like lighthearted and kind of fun. One of my favorite things about a story like this is trying to see this character like navigate this new world that they're trying to understand. And I think it's so funny because this character, Meg, she is just so self-aware. She's like, in any movie that something like this happens, I either have like a critique that they like start to believe it too soon, or they can't catch on fast enough and then it gets boring. Like, she's overanalyzing every little thing. And it's just funny because she's so self-aware that like it sounds so crazy that this is happening to her. But I do like the way that she's going about it, and her trying to figure out more about her life in Ireland is really entertaining. Like, that's one of my favorite aspects of reading a book like this, is when the character's kind of like a fish out of water. They're trying to like have conversations with people to try to understand how their life is. And it's just very entertaining. I do like the writing a lot. I mean, one thing that I will say is that the chapters are so long. I mean, gosh, I'm about to hit chapter 5 on page 79. So the fact that each one of these chapters is almost like 20 pages long, like, it is a little bit annoying. I do wish the chapters were like a little bit shorter and easy to get through, but also this book is not very long. It is just about 300 pages, and I'm really liking the pacing so far. I'm already really feeling connected to these characters. I love that this is taking place in Ireland. Like, it already has so much atmosphere, even though the characters barely even been in Ireland. But I'm already getting such great vibes from this. One of my favorite aspects too with a book like this is when a character has to try to explain to another character that they are from an alternate reality and trying to prove themselves. And there's already been some of that happening in this book, and like, that's also very entertaining. So it is going very well so far. I am currently doing some reading sprints tonight on my Patreon, so I'm hoping that I could get through a good chunk of this book tonight because I'm having such a fun time with it.
I was a rebel without a cause, living out of the blue. Used to think I knew it
is the next afternoon, but I wanted to check in with an update because I just finished reading The Other Side of Now. Isn't it so cute how this book kind of matches not only my wall, but then also my shirt with the red door? You know, I really wish that I was coming at you with like a better review for this book because I think I'm probably gonna end up giving this one like 3 stars. I thought this book was fine. It didn't really wow me, but it's like tough with this book because I don't really know what I was expecting. I just think the story itself was a little bit predictable, and I also never felt really connected to these characters, but I don't know why. You know, like I feel like I should have been because this book is getting glowing reviews. Like everybody seems to be absolutely loving this one, and it has a really high average rating on Goodreads, and I'm really struggling to even vocalize what about this book didn't really work for me. I mean, the things that I loved about this book is that I love that we're following this main character, Meg, who is an actress. Like I think the talk about that industry was very fun in this book. I also love that this book is really like an ode to friendship because I do love books that revolve around friendships in this way and books that talk about like how important friendships are in our lives. I also did, for the most part, I really liked the writing in this book because even though we are dealing with some, you know, sad topics like grief mainly and like healing from grief, I think it is impressive how this author was able to keep the tone of the book actually very lighthearted and kind of fun, even though the subject matter is a little bit serious. I think the beginning was like the best part of this book for me, and then towards the middle it started to get a little bit repetitive with like this character just kind of having the same thoughts like over and over and over again about a certain situation. But then I did really like the ending of the book and I liked the way that it wrapped up. You know what's so interesting though is that when you look up this book on Goodreads, it actually says romance is the first genre listed on Goodreads, which I think is a little bit strange because I don't think that I would categorize this as a romance book first. I definitely think this one leans a little bit more like fiction, you know, like magical realism type of story before it's a romance book. But there is some romance in this book between her and this guy named Killian, and I actually think that he's one of the best characters in this book because all of the scenes that include Killian were some of my favorite scenes in the entire book, and I just think he's so sweet. And I really loved the scenes of her trying to get to know him better and trying to understand their relationship in this alternate universe. I also really loved the Ireland setting in this book, and I loved listening to this one on audio too, by the way, because I feel like the narrator did such a good job with like capturing a lot of the different Irish accents for all of these side characters. This book also had a lot of really great side characters, by the way. Like I really liked all of the characters. I just never felt that emotionally connected to them, I guess, especially to Meg, our main character. I don't know why. You know, I did see a review on Goodreads that said this book kind of reads like young adult, and I kind of get that. Like I do think there is something about this that kind of reads like YA, and I don't even know how to explain that. I think it's because it all just feels a little bit like surface level, or it's like exactly what you would expect from a book like this. I mean, I do love books about, you know, alternate realities, and like that's the main reason why I wanted to read this one. And I do think the most fun that I had while reading this book was when our main character Meg was like exploring this alternate reality and trying to figure out like what the fuck was going on. And she like understands that it's such an impossible situation to try to like explain to anybody in her life, but she needs to in order to get answers about what's going on. It really does suck though to only give this book 3 stars because I feel like this book had so many elements that could have made it a potential new favorite, because it really does have such a great cast of characters. I just wish that I felt a little bit more emotionally invested in these characters. And then I guess I also wanted a little bit more like shocking moments in the plot. Like I wanted something to surprise me. Anyway, tonight is my dad's birthday dinner, so we're gonna be going out to one of his favorite Mexican restaurants that he really wants to go to tonight, and Rachel's gonna be meeting us there, and then afterwards Rachel and Mavis are gonna come over to the house and we're gonna do cake and gifts and like all the things. I also think the next one that I'm gonna start is The Dream Hotel because I actually just got the audiobook for this one checked out from my library this morning, so the timing could not be better, and I can't wait to get into this one. Like, God, I'm really hoping that I find a win in this video. She's a big girl. so many hours later. It's about 11 o'clock at night. I've started reading The Dream Hotel and I'm now 118 pages in. Tonight was a really nice night for my dad's birthday, by the way. Like, we ended up going out to this restaurant with him, and we also got him this cake from Costco that he really ended up loving. And it was just a really great night with the family. Wow, this book has been quite the heavy read so far. I mean, I had heard from a lot of people that this book was actually like pretty heavy subject matter just because the story feels so eerily relevant and like something that could happen in our world at any time. Because in this story, we're following this woman named Sarah, and she's 38 years old. And right at the start of this book, you're learning that it's taking place in this world where even their dreams are under surveillance. So basically what's happening in this story is that the government has extreme surveillance over these people. It's honestly kind of reminding me of like 1984 by George Orwell, or like Fahrenheit 451, where it does feel, you know, a little bit futuristic, but it also feels so close to our reality. And especially with the way that our government like currently is right now in America, like this feels so close to reality and it's very scary. So in this story, there's this thing called the Risk Assessment Administration, and they said that they had analyzed her dreams and they think that she's gonna plan to kill her husband. So she gets put in this facility even though she has not yet committed any crimes. It's because they think she's going to commit a crime based off of what's happening in her dreams. Like, oh my god, can you imagine? Like, you have a dream about killing somebody and they're like, oh, you need to get locked up because you're gonna do it. Like, that's absolutely crazy. And I feel like the social commentary in this book is just so strong. Like, it's almost really, really on the nose how strong the commentary is. Because, I mean, they're calling these people dreamers, right? That they're like locking up in this facility, and they are retaining these dreamers for crimes that they haven't even committed. Like, does that sound familiar? And it's these crimes that they're just assuming that they will eventually commit. I feel like this one is definitely the most sci-fi thing that I've read so far for this video, because this one is definitely heavy on the sci-fi. It's doing a lot of explaining about this world, and at times it can feel a little bit like info dumpy, but I also think that it's very much needed because there's so many layers to like things that are happening in this book. Like, for one example that I really liked is they talked about how if you want to send an email, then you need to get this PostPal account, and it says you need to pay for it, and it's $400 for every 2 months using PostPal. And so I'm like, that feels very realistic to me that they would try to make revenue out of like any little thing. Like, even sending an email is going to be so expensive for these people. And there's this server that's called OmniCloud that is basically like a database that has every single person in the world is in this database, and they have all of their behaviors, and like basically they have a profile of every human ever. And at this facility, some of the things that they're required to do there are so strange. Like, there was this whole part where she was like watching these different videos and they had to try and figure out if it was real or if it was AI, or if they're not sure. Like, they got to respond with one of the above, and I'm like, oh my god, is that supposed to determine whether or not they're sane or something? Because I'm like, let's be real, like half of the adults in America would probably fail that test because AI is getting so realistic looking that sometimes it's getting hard to tell like what is AI and what's real. I do like how in between some of the chapters we are getting these different like news articles and different emails and things that just kind of help explain this world a little bit more, at least in terms of like the sci-fi elements. I liked that there was this one article that kind of explained how this came into law in the first place. I also like that we do get to see the mission of this Risk Assessment Administration. They call themselves the RAA, and it says the mission of the RAA is to keep American communities safe. We are committed to identifying public safety risks and investigating suspicious individuals in order to prevent future crimes. Using advanced data analytics tools, we keep law-abiding Americans safe from harm while also protecting their privacy. Our core principles are care, respect, and responsibility. Like, yeah, the fuck right. I also thought this one quote was really powerful when it was talking about the system and getting justice with the system. The rules don't have to make sense, that no matter how unjust the system is, she is expected to submit to it in order to prove that she deserves to be free of its control. I was like, damn, that's a good line. So yeah, I am really enjoying this so far, even though it does feel like such a heavy read just because of how relevant and scary some of the themes are in this book. I did see a lot of people comparing this one to Black Mirror and kind of saying that this feels like a Black Mirror episode, which I definitely agree with. I mean, at this point, I do see myself giving this like maybe 4 stars. Like, that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. I think it's going very well. It's very thought-provoking. I do think at times, though, the writing is a little bit slow-paced, and there's just a lot of of like info dumping where the writing is just a little bit slow and it's explaining a lot of things to you. I'm not exactly like connecting with the characters very much, but I also don't think that that's, you know, the point with a book like this. I think this is the kind of book that has a lot to say about our society, and I'm really appreciating the different commentary that this one has already. So yeah, this one is going great. I think I'm going to save the rest of it to finish tomorrow because it's already like 11:30 at night right now. And this is not exactly a good bedtime story, you know? Like, I'm curious to see if this one's gonna affect my dreams tonight, but I think I'm gonna finish the book tomorrow. I might actually go out to like a coffee shop tomorrow, or I might go to the park to read and finish this book tomorrow. Okay, hello, hi, it is now the next afternoon, and I wanted to update you because I just finished reading The Dream Hotel. I also decided to go to that new coffee shop that I've never gone to before called Phoenix Coffee, and dude, it was so cute. I ended up getting a chai latte instead of coffee, and this is like one of the best chai lattes that I've ever had. So that's been amazing, and I think the best part about this coffee shop is that it's right on the water next to this whole bay area where there's like tons of boats, and because it's a Saturday, you know, like everybody's out today, it's like 81 degrees. It's like the perfect summer day. And so it was actually really nice to come down to this coffee shop. Like, I'm definitely going to be back in the future. But anyway, I wanted to let you know that I was able to finish reading The Dream Hotel while I was in that coffee shop, and like, damn, this book was just so heavy. I feel like this is one of those books that is very bleak. It is very sad, but it's also like very realistic, and the social commentary hits because it feels so relevant. I think this book is definitely a reminder that the system is completely fucked. Because, you know, this facility, like this place where all of these people are being kept, is basically a prison. And I feel like not only is there so much, you know, commentary in this book about like the dangers of technology, but also there's commentary about how people who benefit from the system might tend to view the system in a different way. For example, when one of the women that's like one of her friends in this book is finally getting out of this facility, she starts to like change her gears, and she's like, I'm sorry, I guess in some cases it takes them longer to gather the evidence they need, but they're not out to get you, they're just doing their jobs. And I'm like, oh my god, that sounds exactly like what I would expect somebody to say that benefits from the system. Like, they're not out to get you, they're just doing their jobs. I do think though one of the coolest aspects of this book in regards to like the dreams and what was happening with that, there was this technology being introduced in this book that's called a dream saver, and it says not only will our newest dream saver reduce the ratio of sleep to rest, not only will you be able to get the physical and mental health benefits of a full night's sleep on just 3.5 hours, but it will also allow you to share your dreams with your family and friends. So like with just the click of a button, you can like share a live feed, like almost like a video of your dreams with your family and friends. And it says, by sharing our dreams, we can relate more intimately than ever before. We can understand one another on a level that was previously unavailable to humanity. And it's like, I love how these things are preached as being like necessary in technology so that we can have more grace and more empathy for people. But it's like, yeah, right, because they're actually just using this kind of technology to detain people because they think they're gonna commit crimes even though they haven't done it yet. So like, they're just using it as another excuse to like lock people up and divide people and turn people against each other. There was so much talk in this book about how like the algorithm probably knows you better than you know yourself. And I feel like that's a really scary concept, but it's also probably something that's like already starting to be true in our current world. I do think this does read a lot like a Black Mirror episode, just in the way that this book is exploring, you know, like the darker sides of technology and like what our world could look like if we had even more government control. And I think the experience of reading this book, it made me feel so claustrophobic, and it was just really frustrating to read. I mean, you can't help but feel frustrated for this character Sarah and like all that she goes through in this book. I think I'm probably gonna end up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. I think the only reason why it wasn't the perfect 5-star book for me is because a lot of this book read in a way that felt very clinical, if that makes sense. Like, I just felt very detached emotionally from everything that was going on, and I guess I never really connected with the characters in the way that I was hoping to. I think some parts of the book were a little bit more slow paced, and because, you know, like I mentioned, we do get these like sections in between the chapters that are kind of more like info dumpy emails or articles or something explaining the world. I mean, while I do think some of them were very cool and were very necessary to like understand the world that this book is taking place in, I also think some of them were so pointless, and some of those I just didn't really find necessary for the story. But this was such a fascinating concept. It's such a thought-provoking book, and I do think that it was very well done. So I'm glad that this one went well. Like, this is the highest rated book that I've had so far for this video. Anyway, it's only like 1:30 in the afternoon, but it's so hot outside. Like, I was gonna try to do more reading, like just sitting on the bench out there by the water, but I literally was sitting there for like 5 to 10 minutes and I was like, oh my god, like it's so hot out here. I mean, it's only like 81 degrees, like I said, but for some reason when you're sitting directly beneath the sun with no shade, it was just a little bit too hot to be like reading outside right by the water. So I think I am gonna head back to the house, and I'm probably gonna get started on the next thing that I want to read for this vlog, which is gonna be The Merge. This is one that I have on my Kindle, and I'm so excited to check out this book. Oh my god, I hope it's a great one. Like, this is my biggest 5-star prediction out of everything that I'm reading for this vlog, so like fingers crossed that it's gonna go so well for me. Hello, good afternoon. It's about 1:30 now on the next day. So last night when I got home, I didn't end up reading anything more like I thought I would. I actually ended up making dinner for me and my parents. I made the HelloFresh burgers with the smoky mustard and the white cheddar, and they turned out so good. Like, those are some of my favorite burgers ever. That was amazing. And then last night I also ended up having my movie night on my Patreon for the movie The Fall Guy. After the movie on Patreon, me and my mom ended up taking a walk like pretty late at night, around like 8:30, like right when the sun was going down. Oh my god, it was magical. It was like the perfect time of night to walk, so I really want to try to do that more often, because I know taking walks, you know, like later in the night is really good for like your health, you know, because it's good to walk after you eat your dinner, and it was just really nice. But anyway, I wanted to update you because today I have started reading The Merge on my Kindle, and I'm now 28% of the way through it. But so far I am really enjoying this book, like so much to the point where like it kind of feels like it could be a 5-star for me. This one is a heavy sci-fi in a lot of ways, but it's exactly the kind of sci-fi that I really like, because similar to, you know, the last book that I just read, The Dream Hotel, I feel like this one really has a lot of different social commentary in this book, and the idea of this merge is so fascinating. I mean, basically this story is taking place kind of in the near future, where like climate change has really changed everything on the planet and things are a lot more difficult now. The planet is overpopulated and there's just a lot of shit going on, and so in this world these people came up with this solution called the Combine, and the idea behind the Combine is that they take two people and they merge them into one mind. I do have a little bit of trouble like trying to visualize this, because I'm like, okay, what does that mean then? Like, it's just two minds going into one body, so then I'm like, what happens to the other body? But what I like about this story is that we're following a mother and a daughter. The daughter's name is Amelia and she's about like 23 years old, and then her mom is this woman named Lori and she's like 65, I think. And the thing is that Lori, the mom, she has Alzheimer's, and so they are signing up for this very particular trial where they have a patient like her who has an illness, and they're going to be merging with somebody who doesn't have the illness, and it's kind of a trial to see like what ends up happening, because they do talk about in this book how there is a chance, like there is a very small chance that the daughter could also inherit Alzheimer's. Whoa, that's a crazy concept to think about. I mean, she's only 23 years old, and it's really fascinating because there's a few different people in their trial that have like very unique situations. There's these two brothers, and like one of the brothers has leukemia and he's probably gonna die. So then the brother is gonna plan to merge with him, but then there is a small chance that the other brother could get leukemia as well. It's just so mind-boggling, you know, like it's crazy. Now it's like gotten to the point in their society where like people are just expected to combine with somebody else. It's almost seen as like selfish and like frowned upon if you're choosing to like keep your individuality. And it's almost become, you know, like an issue of class. Like the rich and the wealthy are able to keep their individuality while everyone else who's not wealthy is kind of forced into these merges. And it is kind of interesting to see how this affects their society, you know, because there is a lot of benefits to combining with another person. So basically it's like the government is pushing this idea on people because they think it's like better for society to have more people combine, because then I think it's less of a population issue. So like there's lots of tax breaks and lots of benefits, and they're starting to put these like extra taxes on housing for people who are individuals that they can't afford. And so people are like losing their homes if they're choosing not to merge. There are just so many layers to the idea of this merge and how people are being forced to merge even though they don't want to because they can't afford it. They literally have no other choice. And I think that's the scariest thing of all, and it's why it's reminding me a little bit of that book that I just read, The Dream Hotel, because this is like full government control, and that's something that's like really scary to think about. But what I do really like about this book is that we are getting both the mother and the daughter's perspectives, because obviously it's very heartbreaking to read from the mother's perspective, because as she's dealing with her illness, she's getting a little bit more forgetful with things, and like seeing that happen in real time, oh my god, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I think this book is hitting me extra hard because the idea of like losing my own mind and like dealing with something like dementia or Alzheimer's, like that is one of my biggest fears ever. One of my favorite books of all time, We Spread by Ian Reid, really touches on this fear, and in some ways this book does remind me a little bit of that book. I feel like We Spread is like the horror version of a take on, you know, dementia and Alzheimer's, whereas like this book is like a sci-fi twist on it. But then I do like that we're also getting the daughter Amelia's perspective, because it is interesting to see how this is going to affect her and her life and her relationships, you know, because she's only 23 years old and she does have a pretty serious relationship with this guy named Albie, and he is like very against the idea of like merging in general. And so he's kind of like worried about this for her, and he's also like hurt because he's like, we cannot be together. Like if you merge with your mom, he's like, we could never like hook up ever again because like you're gonna be like half your mom. I really am enjoying my experience with this book so far. I mean, god, I'm only 28% of the way through, and it is just so thought-provoking. And it's a Sunday afternoon right now. I don't really have any plans other than sitting on this couch and reading this entire book on my Kindle today. I am going to dinner with my parents later tonight. We're gonna be going to Texas Roadhouse together, so that's gonna be a thing a little bit later tonight. But until then, I'm hoping to make a good dent in this book today. Like I would love to be able to finish this book today because of how much I'm loving it.
You held your hand in mine all the way. Ask if I'm enjoying the night. It's okay. No, I can't say I don't like it. Can't say I don't mind. But somehow I always end up here. I'm stuck.
Okay, hello, it has been so many hours. It's now 9:30 at night, but I need to update you because I've just finished reading The Merge. Earlier tonight, I did end up going to dinner with my parents, and it was so nice. And then me and my mom just watched Big Brother, and like Big Brother has been so crazy this season. Like I'm actually really liking this season a lot, but I just finished reading The Merge, and I am so deeply unwell. This book was really great, and I was talking about this book with my parents for like 30 minutes after I finished reading it, and I think that I have to give this book 5 stars. But let me explain myself, because I don't think that this was like the perfect book, and I actually think the ending is something I feel so uncertain about how I feel about it. Like I see what the author was trying to do at the end, and I respect it. I just don't know if it's what I was expecting for the ending of this book, because something that I will say is that I thought that this book was going to go in a much more like emotional direction. I don't know why, that was just like the gut feeling that I had about where this book could be going, but instead I was actually really surprised that the second half of this book feels very different from the first half in a way that I was really not expecting. Like I feel like the second half of this book actually had a lot of like very intense, thrilling moments. There was some twists that I didn't see coming in the story, and I am just kind of blown away, to be honest, that this was a debut book. Like this was so good. This book was just so thought-provoking and so interesting. I think this would be the perfect book to have as like a book club discussion kind of book, because I feel like there are so many kinds of conversations that you could have about this story. I think the pacing for this book was also very well done, because there was never a dull moment. Like I was glued to my Kindle literally all day. I mean, the story is only about like 300 something pages, but for some reason it took me so many hours to read it because I was just so invested and I was highlighting and underlining so many things and then stopping and thinking about so many things. But I think that that's the best reading experience, you know, because I was reading this book and then I would look up and like 2 hours would have gone by and I like didn't even notice, you know, because I was so engaged in the story that I didn't even feel the time passing by. And that so rarely happens for me. And I think just because of how thought-provoking this book is and because how much I want to talk about it for hours and hours and hours, I feel like that alone is reason enough for me to want to give this book 5 stars, even though the ending didn't work perfectly for me. But I also think maybe this is an ending that just might have to sit with me for a little bit longer and then I'll grow to appreciate it more. I don't know. I just love a sci-fi concept like this, like the idea of 2 minds merging into one mind and one body. I mean, maybe it's more obvious, you know, for these kind of patients where like one of them has like an illness or one of them has cancer, like whose body they're going to be going into. But I'm like, for the general public that this is going to be like, you know, made available to, I'm like, how would you decide like whose body is going to go into whose? Like, what do? You just flip a coin? Do you just play some rock, paper, scissors? Like, how do you decide that? I feel like this is the kind of book where I could read 100 more pages of this story and that's how I know that it's 5 stars. I would also love to read another book that takes place in the same exact universe. Or even I would love to read a book that's like in the horror genre that takes place in this world. Oh, dude, that would be so good. I would eat that up. I just really loved the story so much. I loved that it felt just as much of a thriller and a mystery as a sci-fi book at times. And I also loved that we were following this mother and daughter relationship throughout the whole story. I just really connected with these characters and I connected with their story. Even though I never got to the point where I was like emotional, it definitely moved me. Like some of the scenes that were so difficult to read with her mom as she was like struggling with some of her memories. Like this was not an easy read, but it was also so powerful. And I feel like it's one of those books that gives you so much insight into what it might be like to have an illness like this. I do feel like in some ways, this book did remind me a little bit of Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang, but I almost feel like with this book, like this was everything that I was hoping that Immaculate Conception would be, because, you know, Immaculate Conception is a book that I ended up giving around 3 stars because I just never really felt that connected to the characters, and I thought this one was such a slow burn, especially for like the first half of this book. But for The Merge, this is a book that feels very similar actually and very comparable to this book, but I thought The Merge was so fast-paced and I just really enjoyed this story a lot more overall. I think the concepts in this book were a little bit stronger than they were in Immaculate Conception, but maybe that's going to be an unpopular opinion. I don't know, because everybody seems to love Immaculate Conception, but I just know that I have to give this 5 stars. I was actually talking about this with my dad because I was like, oh, but then this happened at the ending, and he was like, oh, what? And you're still gonna give it 5 stars? And I was like, yeah, Dad, because like it was just so amazing for all these other reasons. And he's like, but the ending isn't good, so how can you give it 5 stars? And I was explaining to him that like sometimes I just get this like 5-star feeling. You know, I can't always explain it, and I don't think that the book has to have like the perfect ending for me to want to give it 5 stars. I think really with this book, why I want to give it 5 stars is because I know that I'm going to be thinking about this book so much for the next coming weeks. This is a book that's really going to sit with me, and this is the kind of book that I would talk about with anybody, and I would be like, what would you do in this situation? Or like, what do you think about that? And I love books that are so thought-provoking like this, that definitely promote discussion. I feel like this book is going to spark so many conversations when it publishes in November. It is really just a fascinating concept, and I don't know why, but I feel like stories that deal specifically with like dementia or Alzheimer's, I feel like these stories just hit me on a deeper level for some reason. Like they just really get to me. So yeah, wow, The Merge. I definitely recommend checking this one out. I just can't wait to see more people read this book and hear more opinions, because I do feel like the opinions are going to be pretty divisive with this one, but I really enjoyed my time with this book today. I thought it was so great. All right, so that is a wrap on this reading vlog. We've made it to the very end, and I'm so glad that I found a 5-star new favorite in this vlog. Like I couldn't have asked for a better read. And overall, I do think that this vlog was very successful because there wasn't a single book that I didn't enjoy in this video. I think the lowest rated book that I had for this video is 3 stars, so that's amazing. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you've read any of these books, I would love to know your thoughts on them. I would also love to know if you have any book recommendations for me for books that fit into any of these categories, like any book recs that you have that are about dreams or memories or alternate realities or anything like that. Please leave them down in the comments below because I would love more recommendations. So thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!